Now I'm pleased to introduce our next item on the agenda called Bakken Next Steps, with Ron Ness leading a discussion with Rick Muncrief. Rick was named CEO upon the merger of Devon Energy and WPX Energy, where he previously served as CEO and chairman of the board. Prior to joining WPX in 2014, he served as Senior Vice President of Operations and Resource Development for Continental Resources. He served in various managerial capacities with ConocoPhillips and its predecessor companies. He is currently on the board of directors of the Williams Company and also serves on the board of directors and the executive committee of the American Petroleum Institute, API. He is the past chairman and currently serves on the board of the American Exploration and Production Council. Rick is obviously well accomplished, but his career started in North Dakota in the Williston Basin in 1984. He was an OSU grad, and he was the drilling engineer for Meridian Oil, which turned into Burlington Northern, which then was purchased by ConocoPhillips. But he was the drilling engineer back in the mid-1980s when they drilled the first horizontal Bakken well in this basin in 1987, called the MOI Elkhorn number 33-11. It all started with Meridian Oil, and Rick Muncrief was there. Now let's listen to Ron and Rick's chat on the Bakken Next Steps.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, before Rick and I get going here, I quick flipped one page, so I got one more page of our very important premier partners here that I need to read. Foundation Energy Management, Go Wireline, Grayson Mill Energy, Hall Trucking, Halliburton Energy Services, Hess Corporation, Iron Oil Operating, JCAM Catalyst, Kraken Resources, Lund Oil, Marathon Oil Company, Martin Construction, Mirex Petroleum Corporation, Neighbors Drilling Technologies, ND Energy Services, Ness Consulting, Dakota Services and Rentals, and Northern States Fishing Tools. Good morning, Rick.
Hey, Ron, how are you?
It's not your first time in Watford City.
It's not. You know, it's interesting. Todd said he lived here in 1984. That was the year I got transferred from Amarillo, Texas, to Billings, Montana, and it was a different Williston Basin then.
So tell us about that first Bakken experience. What year did Todd say it was?
Well, you know, I've got to say in 1984 and 85, 86, that time period, we actually were recompleting vertical wells, Red River wells, into the Bakken as a bailout zone, basically. But there was a well that was drilled by Beartooth Oil and Gas. It was our key well out in the Badlands, and we keyed off that well. And so in 1987, we did a horizontal well. I think it was the second one in the U.S. First one here in Williston Basin, and achieved a 2,000-foot lateral. Of course, that was the days we didn't stimulate the wells. We didn't have the downhole technology, which came on later on, you know, in the early 2000s. But it was an exciting time. And but when Todd was talking about 1984, there wasn't many rigs running in the Williston, and we were chasing the Red River, you know, seismic bumps and some Madison wells, Mission Canyon wells, things like that. But that was before the Bakken really took off.
So I think the third well completed in North Dakota was actually completed in the Bakken zone in about 1952. So this Bakken thing, it's been around a while.
It has.
So what happened in that Meridian well when you completed that well? Then how did it play out quickly? And you guys decided, this Bakken's not worth chasing.
No, I'll tell you what, Ron, it was a successful well. We drilled a 2,000-foot lateral. We basically would. It was open hole completion, so we did not cement the liner. We just had aluminum plugs that go in with a flat bottom mill and shear old plugs off and let it turn around and come at you. So it's just a completely different completion approach. But you know, it was economic enough. We kept it because we were just coming out of the period of you know, the late '80s where you're starting to see, or we saw Northern Rockies crude oil hit $9 a barrel, and it was a tough time. But we came out of that. We actually kept anywhere from 2 to 5 rigs running in a Bakken, drilling horizontal Bakken wells from 87 into the about 1994.
So that Meridian squad, you had a whole bunch of talented people that are still around. Some of them are here today. In addition, you had guys like Jim Arthod and Todd Slauson and Lauren Copsing starting to run around the Williston Basin.
Yeah, there are, and even Meridian became known as Burlington Resource. I know Darren Hinkey's down the board. And Darren was I recall Darren being just out of Texas Tech, came to work for us as a young engineer, and so yeah, we had a great team.
So fast forward about, I probably met you in the early 2000s, and you had gone to work for Continental, and I vividly remember this. We were talking about Bowman County and the Red River play there. We were producing about 92,000 barrels a day in North Dakota, and between Continental and at the time Burlington Resources, we were producing a little over 40,000 of that in the Red River play in Bowman County. Where would we be today without the Bakken? We wouldn't be sitting in Watford City in rooms like this, right? So, but you and Jack Stark and we had legislative hearings, and we were talking, and Jack and you kept talking about, we're chasing big oil fields. We're here chasing big oil, big fields. And I always thought, what the heck does that mean? How did you guys know that there was something else here?
Well, Jack's a great geologist and led a great, very talented team of geoscientists there at Continental, and obviously with Harold's knowledge and his passion and his drive, it was truly a recipe for success. And you basically put the work ethic of North Dakotans on that, and the creativity, and it's been a great story to be a part of over several decades now. But we just felt like there was a ton of potential here. And there were some people we learned. EOG made some of their geoscientists early on understood that you had a migration play, and a lot of that oil was generated in the heart of the basin, but actually migrated north and east up to Montreal County and places like that. And so early movers like EOG and Whiting and others just crushed it. I mean, they did a great job. And we felt like we could continue to leverage that success throughout the basin, and we did. And when I say we, it's collectively. It's a lot of hard work. Todd just talked about the number of wells that have been drilled in this basin since that time period. It just is phenomenal. But I still say that even with the incredible resource the Permian Basin is today, the Bakken is where it started. The Bakken's where we started changing the world.
Well, you probably don't remember this, but I clearly remember it in 2009, 10, 11, 12. You and I would sit down, or we'd be talking about something, and you spent so much time teaching me about space units and well density and completions. And so, Rick, I really, appreciate all the time you spent with me. So we've been good friends for a long time, and we're all just so glad to see Devon's recent acquisition in the Bakken. I've been poking you for years and years. You guys need to ramp up your Bakken play. Well, you got her done, but let's first talk about Devon and your footprint in the Permian and other plays about Devon and where you're at prior to this acquisition.
Yeah, Devon's a phenomenal story, and I've got been blessed. I've got 5 of our teammates here today with us, and so if you haven't met them, make sure you do. But Devon's a 50-year-old company. 15 years ago, we operated in Russia, in China, West Africa, the Canadian oil sands, deep water Gulf of Mexico, and a lot of marginal basins throughout the U.S. And so we have, over time, and certainly the merger with WPX Energy and Devon of just nearly 4 years ago now, really set us up for a great future, I think, here on the lower 48, all land. We'll see what the next generation does. I mean, we may have been back up in West Africa or something. I doubt it, but you never know. But right now, we're in 5 basins in 5 states. So we're down in the Eagle Ford of South Texas. We're in the Permian Basin, West Texas, Southeast New Mexico. We're in the Mid-Continent area in the state of Oklahoma, just west of our home office there. We're in the Powder River Basin of Wyoming, and then up here in the Williston Basin. So our commodity mix, we're just about 50% crude oil, 25% natural gas, and 25% natural gas liquids. So very diversified commodity mix. But when we talk about, on an equivalent basis, 50% of your production is oil, but at today's prices, it drives about 90% of our revenues. And so when I think about a Williston Basin, this oil levered basin, I think is going to continue to drive margins for companies for a long time.
Well, you're an oil guy, and I remember when you took over as CEO of WPX, they were really heavy in the gas side, and your drive with WPX and now with Devon is to become an primary oil producer, and you saw the future, and you knew where to take the company. So congratulations for that. So talk about your Williston Basin acreage, what you presently have, and what the Grayson Mill asset does for you.
You bet. So if I back up a moment, our legacy assets were all on the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation, where we've operated since 2012, got a great relationship and had a lot of success there. But the Grayson Mill acquisition gives us another 300,000 acres, about 500 new wells to drill, about 300 identified refrac opportunities. So you'll see us take some of these 20 and 30 barrel a day wells back up to several hundred barrels a day. So we're excited about that, and just continue to do those sorts of production optimization things to sustain the production. But I can tell you our geoscience team, what they really like about the Grayson Mill acreage is it's 300,000 acres. So it's a big footprint. And we start thinking about all these zones that we used to do DSTs on all the way down to the Red River. We never did a DST on a Bakken. It was on the Mission Canyon, Madison, the Nisku, the Duperow, the Interlake, Red River A, B, C, and D, all these different horizons. And so I can't wait to start contemplating utilizing today's technologies, today's efficiencies on that 300,000 acre footprint and what we might find. So I think there's an exploration element still here in the Williston Basin. We call it the Bakken all the time, and the Bakken has been the money maker and the rainmaker. That being said, there's still a lot of oil in these other intervals, and I think that exploration is going to continue to play a role going forward. I'm also excited about the fact that we have the Grayson Mills had a nice midstream asset, and so we'll continue to grow that, leverage that to be efficient. We've got some work to do on some more of our flaring, so we'll get that down where it needs to be, like we've done, kind of across the country, and so we'll get that taken care of. But really excited, some great people. The Grayson Mill team has done a phenomenal job with that company and what they built it into. So hats off to them, and they're just good people. Some of which I've actually worked with before, and so in prior life. So that's just the way it works.
Well, Kathy Ness, who's going to sit in this chair next, would be, I'm sure, is just smiling right now as we've been drilling these Bakken wells for almost 20 years now, drilling right through all these other zones, and she's always said we've produced 1 billion barrels of non-Bakken oil in this state, so there's a lot of opportunities out there. So we agree with you. So, Rick, one thing that's about the Grayson Mill asset, your Devon asset, primarily on the reservation. This is totally new acreage, totally just a kind of like adding a whole separate, almost going to a separate basin.
Right. Well, it is maybe internally, but some of us have worked at Bakken for a long time. So we actually drove out. We had Dusty Grosslack, who I used to work with in the past, and Dusty kind of shepherded us. We did a quick tour of things yesterday morning, and what was it just brought back a lot of memories, Ron, of all the places we worked before, and we're successful. And so I'm real excited about this acreage. So while it's not where Devon has operated before, I call it's a 3 wood away. So we're on the same golf course, and so we're going to be in good shape.
So drilling rig count, production projections. We're working with the state of North Dakota right now on the production forecast for actually 25 to 27. I've called around to all the major producers. It's so critical when you look at the state's budget. We talk about 51% of the state's revenues coming from oil and gas. That's just the oil and gas production taxes. As Senator Patton would tell you, it's likely more about like 63 to 65%. So when we do the state budget, we totally look at that. So what are you looking at for the future?
Well, what we've got into really is at the company level, and we still have not closed the Grayson Mill acquisition. We hope to do that in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll start the integration. And its timing's going to be really good. We'll be working on our 2025 budget as well. But we basically are planning on keeping our production pretty flat to where we are today. And activity-wise, we'll probably need to be in the plus or minus 3 rigs. It's just a constant activity level, keep efficiencies really high. And we're going to do that at the company level too. Currently, we're running 21 rigs, operated rigs, and then we have a joint venture down in Eagle Ford with BP, and we have 3 rigs there. So 24 rigs. So, and as fast as we're drilling these wells, company-wide, that's quite a bit of capital, a little over $4 billion of capital next year for new projects. So we'll drill about 400 plus wells next year as a company. So we're motoring through it, and then I'm excited about transactions like this, and then some of our exploration work we're doing internally. We're continuing to add inventory, so just continuing to build for the future.
Did you guys pick up another company before the Grayson Mill acquisition?
We actually, we bought the most recent. Before that was a Eagle Ford company, and then we bought some acreage offsetting us on the reservation, Rimrock. And so we've done, since the merger 3 years ago, we've done 3 other transactions, just continuing to, add to things. So with the Rimrock acreage here in North Dakota, I'm still optimistic we're going to have some real nice returns from that coming, especially some of our southeast part of the acreage down in the southeast part of the Fort Berthold, and then also the secondary recovery potential. I know we're working with a lot of companies, so that is phenomenal rock that we have, and the Rimrock acreage fit in really nicely with that. So when I start thinking about the next 5, 10, 15 years, you start thinking about unitization for secondary recovery purposes. It's sure nice to have that acreage sewed up. It makes things a lot easier.
Well, that's a big topic is how do we continue to get more oil, and your projection for your production is pretty much what I heard from all the operators. Everybody's going to be flat with a 1 to 2% increase. So production is going to, I think we're going to hold production and hold production and hold production. And at some point, we got to supercharge this reservoir. So enhanced oil recovery with carbon dioxide. Are you seeing any of that discussion in the Permian yet, or is North Dakota going to be at the cutting edge of that?
No, you're seeing those secondary recovery conversations being had in the Permian and down the Eagle Ford as well. And so, and every reservoir is different, every basin is different, so it's going to have its own unique characteristics, and we'll figure out what works. It just takes time, but you've got enough companies looking at it, we'll figure it all out.
So with your experience in the Williston Basin and now your experience in the Permian, Lynn and I used to always have this chat. It seems like everything we do works down there, but everything you try to bring from the Permian back up here, it seems like it just doesn't quite work that way. And is that just Lynn and I thinking out? Or
I don't know if I see it that way, but I'm not. Let's compare notes later on, Ron, and see kind of what it is.
So just tell us a little bit about the zones in the Permian and what you're looking at in a spacing unit in the Permian.
Well, down there, like on our acreage, and we're located on the Delaware side, south, so on the western side of the Permian. So we're in Leonetti County, New Mexico, and in Loving and Reeves County, Texas. So that state line area, and it's phenomenal rock, and Exxon and Chevron and Oxy and EOG and several others are there. ConocoPhillips has a nice presence there. So a lot of us are right there, and that it truly is a honey hole. And so what you see is we call it flow units, because we have about 8 or 9 different producing horizons. It's just like a stack of pancakes, and you do see some interaction between some of those horizons. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about spacing, both from a vertical and in a horizontal plane. And where we've landed is we really have about 3 flow units where you would put several pancakes together, if you will, and do co-development. And it's working out really well. And so some phenomenal recoveries, great returns, the efficiencies. We're drilling wells at, in 2015 when we entered the Permian, those were 25 and 30-day wells. You know, we're drilling those anywhere from 9 to 14 days now. It just, so just what we've seen in the Bakken with efficiencies, we're seeing it down there as well.
Production just seems to be off the charts, almost 6 million barrels a day in Texas, and I think New Mexico's at 2 million barrels a day, so that trend is going to continue up.
It is continuing. You mentioned New Mexico. Similar to North Dakota, New Mexico is very, very dependent on oil and gas production. It's always been that way. I grew up in that country, so it's where I went to school until my dad got transferred out of there when I was a sophomore in high school to Oklahoma. And it was true then, it's true today, 50, 60 years later, that oil and gas pays the bills. You can talk about a lot of other things, but oil and gas pays the bills. It always has and it probably always will for that state. And there's a long runway. And even though the politics lean at times pretty hard to the left, they also know how to balance a checkbook. And so they know when it's time to where the rubber meets the road. And so even though we fight through some really tough regulatory issues, we figure out a way to do it as industry, and the state works with us there. And so it's looking pretty good outlook.
We were, I know this spring you had an amazing invite to join Bill Gates and the Microsoft team. It was actually during the Williston Basin Conference, so Rick couldn't make it. So he promised me that week that he was going to come here because he couldn't be at the Williston Basin Conference. So thank you for that. But we got a lot of sessions here coming up today and tomorrow, really about power supply, what we're going to do with our gas. So tell everybody about what you learned at Microsoft.
Well, I think the AI train is coming. There's a lot of excitement about it. But as Satya Nadella, who's CEO of Microsoft, he saw my name badge. I didn't know him prior to that. It's the first time I'd ever met him. And he said, "Oh, Devon Energy." He said, "Well, I thought 25 years ago I went to work for a software company. I now realize I work for an energy company." And so I think it's pretty powerful when you start thinking about the recognition of how much energy it's going to take, how critical it is, whether those sources are renewable or whether they're traditional, like oil and gas, especially natural gas. It's going to have to, if you're going to win the AI race, you better be using natural gas to power it. And I think the more and more the recognition is there. So when I think about states like North Dakota or down in Oklahoma and Texas, New Mexico, I think a lot of the states here in I call it the hydrocarbon fairway of the central part of the U.S. More and more the data centers will be built here, and we'll see how it all plays out. But many of the developers are thinking about electricity, and I've been pretty public my concern about just the overall concern about the nation's grid. Just something as simple as getting enough transformers to do repairs and to expand normal growth, let alone a large load increase like you're going to see with AI. So that's one of our big challenges, I think, as a nation, but it's also a big opportunity. But I'm bullish that natural gas is going to play a larger role in AI generation than a lot of people think.
So was there discussion amongst the Microsoft group there that their recognition and acknowledgement of oil and gas and coal has literally got to be the source of their reliable, affordable?
Not really.
Not
to be honest with you, people are still hoping that they can figure out a way to get renewables to be so you're hearing more and more about nuclear, you're thinking about solar and wind, and that's fine. That's okay to be thinking along that, but at the end of the day, you need to be thinking about alternative plans like natural gas, which is here. And
like
now,
power every day.
And power every day. And so I think that we'll see how it plays out once again. But that's my bet is natural gas is going to have a pretty good outlook.
We've got a few minutes and a couple topics to cover, but one of the things in past conferences here, we've had, so many discussions about Wall Street and banks and the trend of ESG. And I know you spend a lot of time with the financiers. What are you seeing out there in the interest in oil and gas and the Bakken and all those things?
I think with oil and gas, it's an interesting time. We have some pretty good balance in oil and gas. So in other words, we're not short of supply. We don't have demand going through the roof, and so where we're at today, it's in pretty good balance. So from a perspective of these challenges that we've been facing the last several years, topics like ESG and concerns like that, we've number one, we've made a lot of advancements on a lot of fronts with the E and an ES, and the G is something that from a governance perspective, I think with our industry, when I think about publicly traded companies, governance has always been really strong. And so that's more, I think a lot of the G of ESG was actually in the financial services industry. But for our industries around E, and I think we've done a phenomenal job, and I'm damn proud of what we've done as a country and as a group of producers in moving the needle. And at the same time, providing this energy to power the world. I think that recognition in the financial community is there too. Now, I will say that if you're in this supply and demand world, everything's pretty well in balance. If you're an investor at this point in time, Ron, the reality is where's the catalyst for growth? And so I think a lot of the fund flow for investors has come over into technologies, something that, and a lot of these technologies won't work to the degree people are investing in. I'm convinced of that. But that being said, there's just a lot of momentum and a lot of inertia headed toward technology companies. And so traditional companies that are, let's call them value oriented, like oil and gas, midstream, it could be water, it could be utilities. They're not getting the love that the technology companies are. Now, that will cycle back. We all remember the .com era. So when that fund flow starts coming back our way, it's going to be pretty fast, and it's going to be pretty strong. And so I think the outlook's good. But I think we as an industry have done the right thing in living within our means, not outspending our cash flow, and getting capital back to shareholders either through dividends or share repurchases, paying down debt, keeping our debt levels down. So I think. By and large, investors, we're kind of in a wait and see. Now, for companies, we just need to keep doing the right thing, and it'll come back to us.
A few years back, you made a major time commitment on really reorganizing the American Exploration and Production Council, AXPC. We had Ann here, I think, 2 years ago. So, we don't know what's going to happen on November 5th. We know that the onslaught of federal regulations has just been pummeling on us. So talk about the importance of having strong trade organizations at not only the national level, but the state level and all the states you guys play.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so critical. And so number one, I appreciate everyone here being a supporter of the North Dakota Petroleum Council, because I think Ron and his team do a phenomenal job and have for a long time. But at the national level, I'm on the board of API, board of AXPC, and what we talked about, Ron, is a few years ago, we felt like that AXPC had to be the voice of U.S. independent, not just multinational or integrated companies that had refining and midstream and E&P, but we were the exploration and production team, and we were the ones that we felt like had changed the world in growing volumes here in the U.S. and here in America. And so we decided to not just be a Me Too kind of organization, trade group, to just second whatever else someone else recommended, that we were going to take the bull by the horns and be that voice. And so we have about 30 companies. Most of the largest E&Ps are in there, including we have XTO. They're a subsidiary of Exxon, but XTO is a longtime member, so we have them in there. But unlike API, where your leverage is depending on how big a company you are, or your dues you're paid, or on how much production you make. AXPC is one company, one vote. And so it's just similar to a lot of smaller trade groups, but I think we've been very effective in the last few years where we've taken it. We've had I was just chair a couple of years. We did that change, but we had several chairmen over the last few years. Ann and her team do a phenomenal job. We now have Travis Dice from Diamondback Energy is our chair now. So Travis is a great leader, as we all know. So I think we've got a good outlook. But trade groups are so important. We've got to get out. We've got to pound the streets. We've got to pound the halls of Congress, and just continue to be front and center in front of legislators.
Well, trade groups are only as good as their members and the engagement and the support of their members. So thank you for that. You know, you've been, you're probably the best one of our speakers to talk about this, but you know, over this whole run-up of oil and gas in North Dakota, and I remember you guys coming to Governor Schaefer talking about the need to incentivize exploration and production, and got a tax incentive passed for the, you know, basically the Red River play in Bowman County. Obviously, then Governor Hoven, then Governor Dalrymple, now Governor Burgum is, you know, likely could be the Secretary of Energy, he could be the Secretary of the Interior, and really over a period of 7 years, he's become so knowledgeable, he could go anywhere and give an energy speech. And but, you know, Congressman Armstrong can't be here today. The polling indicates he's got somewhere between a 40 and a 45% lead in his race, so the likelihood of him becoming governor on November 5th is very high. You've probably known Kelly as long as anyone in this room, so how important is that to where we're going, and what do you think Kelly's going to bring to the job?
Yeah, I think Kelly Armstrong is the man, you know, to lead us forward here in North Dakota. And I've known, I really knew his dad, Mike Armstrong, since the early '80s when I lived in Billings. So I've known him a long time. Great family, and they are loyal and they love the state of North Dakota. Want to do the right thing for North Dakota, which is the kind of leadership you need. But I think at this point in time with the election, whether it's a local, state, national, whatever, you can't take anything for granted. So I encourage them. He may have a big lead, but don't take it for granted. Get out and vote. Get out and support the people that support us. I'll leave it that way, because you know, as I look at North Dakota, we're going to need strong leadership. We got a lot of work to do up here. I was reading a note from Inveris the other day, and who's one of the really the leading authorities. A lot of financial firms really tend to look at their research as the gospel, and while it's not the gospel, a lot of times it's pretty good. But they say here in the Williston Basin, the Bakken, we have about 10 years of solid drilling, and so that's kind of the way I look at it. We have a decade, and probably in the Bakken, of drilling new wells, and we have a lot of re-stimulation. And I think the next 15 years after that are going to be things like secondary recovery and enhanced oil recovery. And so that's for the next 25 years, and you're still going to have a large base that's going to provide a lot of steady income, I think, for the state. And but there's a tremendous amount of work that takes place. So we're going to have a lot of jobs to be filled and replaced as we see retirements and additional work and additional complications. So I think the North Dakota energy industry's in position A to provide a lot of revenue for the state and security for the country, and a lot of jobs for families here in North Dakota and across the U.S.
Yeah, just look at what the 3 Mile Lateral over the last 18 months has done to the play, and more leasing and more activity, and you look where the rig count is today. And like 2 years ago, we could have thrown you could have hit a driver and damn near hit every drilling rig in North Dakota from right here. Right?
Yeah, well, you know, the fact is, people ask me sometimes internally, when are we going to get there? Yeah. You're never there. You're never there. There's typically always a better way. There's the next chapter of this industry, continues to evolve, continues to get better. And I just think both my children are in this industry, and I think they're going to have long careers, and hopefully my grandkids. I've got 4 grandkids now, and I'd love to see them.
Well, that's what we like about this Bakken Area Skills Center right over here. The next great minds
that's
come from right
here.
So
hats off, and Dale, you're talking about what McKenzie County's done. We all remember the challenging times, but McKenzie County and the entire, as part of the state, and the entire state of North Dakota, and including our friends over in the eastern half that have helped provide funding and a lot of the right legislative decisions to keep it going out here. And but Dale, really on behalf of someone that doesn't live here in the state, I come to Watford City and throughout the state. It's phenomenal what you've done here. So good job, and thanks for your leadership.
And Rick, about 5 weeks from now, I think you're coming back to hunt some pheasants. You and your son are coming back to hunt some pheasants with us. Can't
wait. Maybe you can teach us how to shoot a shotgun.
You did pretty fine last year, I think. So how about a big round of applause for our friend Rick Muncrief.
Thanks, Ron.